Chapter 17. Being a celebrated artist is hard work. It's hard on the individual to bare his soul to the world, to be judged by all who experience his art, to show his true self, and not worry about if he is accepted for what he is. It's then rough to walk about and know that every person knows you inside and out, knows your true dreams and faults by deciphering the coded message in your art. It's hard knowing that no one fully understands. Rich Coulter had been everywhere singing his song, but tonight he slept alone again. He had been a bartender 2 years ago when he started having the dreams. A lonely man, he envisioned someone who knew him. He saw a young lady who could laugh and cry with him, could share all his passions, and could share a life with him. He would spend endless hours on the beach, talking and laying in the sun, walk through the grandest cities hand in hand, content with the silence as they walked in awe of beauty. The silence was comfortable. When they conversed, it was like the world was listening with a curious intent. When they embraced, angels sang. When they made love, the world stood still. At the end of every outing, Rich would be pulled away from his love and thrown back into the world by his blaring alarm clock. He would curse himself for not being able to remember what she looked like, but would get through the day with the sole purpose of retiring to his bed and the arms of his dream girl. After a year of these dreams, he awoke one morning to remember her name. He would quietly talk to her when life would get too hard and aggravating. Sooner than later, she became his muse. He awoke one day with notes running through his head. He hummed them on the way to work. He whistled them as he poured drinks and collected tips, and he put a rhythm to them as he walked from his job to the music store and bought a guitar. He wasn't a musician, but it soon became a nightly ritual for him to strum Melanie's melody on his Gibson acoustic before he lay down to sleep, perchance to dream. The ritual was his way of calling to his muse to visit him again that night. She would visit him night after night, taking his hand and leading him, following him, and being beside him. Come light of morning, he would forget what she looked like and could only hold onto the notes to think of her. He soon began remembering tiny pieces of their conversations and would speak of them with coworkers and bar-goers. He would turn down dates and friendships in the real world to keep himself pure for his love. He began to realize that it was like he was married to no one, and so the inner struggle started. Wrestling with the notion that he might be insane, he made a crossover from bartender to artist. He took 2 weeks off to compose a plan, locked himself in his apartment, and emerged 7 days later with a song, calling out to his dream girl. He had decided that she must be real and looking for him as he did for her. He took the melody and stretched and twisted and turned and bent and pulled until it opened up into chords that sounded right to his ear. Then he sat with pen and paper and wrote out lyrics that fit the melody. In the end, he had the ballad, Faceless Lover. He dragged his guitar down to his place of employment and talked the manager into letting him play the song to a full bar. After 2 days of pleading with the boss, he finally got consent. At 10:30 that night, he shut the jukebox off and stood on the end of the bar. Shutting out the heckles from the patrons, he strummed his instrument and told his story to the crowd, calling out to his muse, hoping that she would hear him and he could hold her with these arms, asking the customers for their help, describing the times they had, her beautiful voice even calling out her name. Closing his eyes, he envisioned her and sang her praise. When he finished, he opened his eyes to a silent bar. Some eyes were overflowing with tears. All eyes opened wide and focused on him. He stepped down from the bar, and the room stayed quiet. He looked at all the faces. "So, has anyone seen her?" he said. The replacement bartender dropped the bottle of rye she was holding. The crash of broken glass snapped the room back to reality. Sighing amidst the congratulations and handshakes, Rich walked over and plugged the music box back in. No one chose another song from it. They did, however, ask Rich to repeat the song an hour later. Under the influence of alcohol, the encore show was sloppy, but got the same response. The manager called him into the back office and asked if he would like to meet a record-producing friend of his. 2 days later they met, and Rich played the song. The gentleman knew right off the bat that they were going to be millionaires. Rich liked the idea of being rich, but all he really wanted was his Melanie. That attitude made every performance of the song more heartfelt than the last. Every time he would call out to get no answer, he would call louder. Hundreds of calls, and 1 year later, everyone from sea to shining sea knew of his unrequited love. But the life of a celebrated artist is a hard one. Many felt as though they sympathized with him, but no one knew his real pain. 1 year after the song was written and played across the country, Rich Coulter stopped having the dreams. His beloved Melanie no longer appeared to him at night, and the result was a walk on sanity's edge. Rich paced most nights beside his bed on the hardwood floor. The times he did sleep, it was in a cold darkness that no images illuminated. He could only rely on his fading memory to bring him pictures of his sweet love, but that was no consolation. When he toured the country, many people claimed to know his Melanie. He went out many times to meet a girl someone had told him was his soulmate. Each time he left the scene depressed and would cry softly to his pillow that night. A tragic man, this Rich Coulter. On this night he sat, singing the song over and over. He looked around. "I know you're here, my dear. Here with me, here in me. I need you, not for inspiration. To hell with music, to hell with my life. I just need you here with me." The room answered him with silence. "I need you." He climbed off his bed and walked to the dresser. Looking in the mirror, he saw a thin man with circles under his eyes looking back. Tired and spent, something in him told him not to give up. The search must continue. He looked upon the dresser to the mail he received 3 days ago. He had his share of fan mail and hate mail. This one, signed by someone who called himself the Twin, is the third letter he had gotten from this man. The first letter came 6 months ago and blasted the singer's talent, denouncing him as a worthless piece of human garbage, nothing that Rich hadn't read before. The next one came 2 months ago. That one was thrown away quickly, as the Twin described Melanie's voice with a clarity that Rich had neglected in the song. The letter went on to mock Coulter's search with a promise that it would be unending. Angered, Rich crumpled the paper and threw it away. This third one was different. "Coulter, you can't have her. You never will have her. Call her name out again and again. Scream it into the night air. She knows it's her, but something keeps telling her not to go. I've convinced her that she was dreaming, but she didn't listen to me. She's gone now, and my only hope of justice is to get to you before she does. You've taken my life away by calling to her. You know that she is something heaven sent. She was sent to me. You've called her away from me. Well, you can have your precious Melanie in death. After I kill you, I'll send her along next. Die, the twin. Aside from being an out-and-out death threat, the letter gave Rich hope. His love was coming to him. He looked at the letter again. Had he broken up a marriage? Is this girl the fair angel he had once dreamed about? Looking up into the mirror, he saw something aside from the skeleton. He saw a dreamer, one who gets lost in fantasy, one who wants something so bad that he will bring it into reality. Perhaps Melanie was something purely from his mind, something he had held on to get him through the day. If this were the realization between fantasy and reality, why was he crying? Brushing away the one tear from his cheek, Rich bent down and put his boots on. He walked out the door into the cool night air of San Francisco to find himself. If only he knew where to look.